Okay, right. Thanks, guys, for joining. I really appreciate it. If I could just ask everyone to put themselves on mute so we can get on with the meeting and get started. I've forgotten how to mute everyone as a host, so I'm gonna hope that you guys will just mute yourselves as we go along. Okay, so thank you for joining, guys. Welcome to our networking event. I mean, this is a virtual version of a networking event. So just to quickly introduce who we are, the Zim Property Investors. For anyone who's never been with us before, appreciate you coming here. I hope you find value and you will come back again at some point. So with the Zim Property Investors, just a network of people who invest in property anywhere around the world, predominantly in the UK. It's the Zim Property Investors because it was started by Zimbabweans. It's not exclusive to Zimbabweans. So if you're not a Zimbabwean, don't worry, you are welcome to join us. So just to let you guys know, I'm pretty sure everyone who's joined through the link has seen what's going on today. We're going to be having a conversation with the amazing Ruth Dhliwayo. So we just want to get to know about what it is that she does, what it is that is going on in Ruth's life, and what she has learned that we can utilize in our own personal and business lives. So I am super excited to have this conversation here. So for anyone who might be new here, I'm just going to drop my phone number in the comments. If you're new and you would like to be part of our network, there's a WhatsApp group, there's a Facebook group. If you want to be part of our network, please feel free to reach out and use the phone number that's in the chat now. Okay, so I am hoping that Ruth is ready.
Yeah, I'm here, Muzzy. Thank you.
Hey.
Just gonna turn my camera on.
No problem, no problem.
I had to move out of the front room because, yeah, like you said, people are watching football. So hopefully you can see me all clearly.
It's like the game of the year at the moment.
Oh.
It's like the most important thing ever. So I've got loads of respect for everyone who has chosen to come and listen to us instead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your platform to share a few things that I've learned, things that I applied to some of my clients. So I'm really hoping that by the end of the session, you can all have something that you can take with you to implement into your lives, into your businesses, to just help them grow and for you to achieve personal success. So like Moses said, thank you so much to everybody that's taken time out to actually join us today. There is a lot of things, 101 things that you could all be doing. But it's really appreciated that you've spent time to join us today. So my name is Ruth Dhliwayo or Dube. I'm in transition because I'm currently married, transitioning to the legally married status. So I'll be using both names until then. What do? I always struggle with this because I wear quite a few hats, but professionally, I'm a project professional. I have been working in the transport industry for the past 9 years, managing bidding work. So in the business development teams, and I've worked in rail, I've worked in bus, in the UK, in Europe, in the Nordics. So that's been an interesting journey in itself. Corporate life is truly something else. So that's what I do, kind of my 9 to 5. Outside of that, I have a nonprofit called Stenum, which is all about getting young people into entrepreneurship, social businesses specifically, and helping them grow with a focus primarily in the Southern African region. So working with young people who are trying to move themselves out of poverty and who have started their social businesses. So we help them by providing resources, workshops, and connecting them to financing opportunities so they can grow and tap into new markets. We are also based in the UK, in the Northeast is where our headquarters is. So hopefully you can give us a follow on that to kind of keep up to date with some of the things that we will be doing. I also run my own management consultancy. As I've already explained, I'm a project professional, and I'm really passionate about seeing people grow their side hustles or their businesses. Because I myself, I like to think I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. So that's also what I do. So what I do with the consultancy is I help small businesses with their business processes and increasing their income. So through funding and grant proposals, just to see how best we can look at the business to help them grow. And then kind of like outside of that, sort of from a personal point, I'm a speaker, hence I'm here today. But I also run a blog. That's just all things to do with career development, business advice, and I run networking events. So I really welcome platforms like this, because I truly feel that we have so much potential within our community. And sometimes, you never know when you're going to get connected to the person that's going to help you grow or help you get to that next phase. So groups like these are really, really welcome. Please feel free to kind of stop me as I go. I'm hoping this will be interactive.
Well, we're loving everything that you're saying so far. That's why we're quiet. I think you've actually touched on quite a lot here. So in terms of how we're going to do this, guys, just to let you guys know, I can see some of you there's more people that have joined, so thank you for being part of this. We're just going to be going through a few questions, sort of more of a conversation between myself and Ruth, and asking a few things about what she does. And as we go along, if there's any questions that you guys might want to ask, please start populating the comments or the messages on here, and then I'll be asking your questions for you as we go along a bit later on. So at the moment, I've got a few questions for you, Ruth, if that's okay.
Of course, fire away.
I mean, the first question itself was to find out what it is that you do. So you've really touched on that. Actually, like properly gone for it. Just to clarify, I know it looks obvious, especially for other Zimbabweans, because we can see your name. You are from Zimbabwe, right?
I am. First generation immigrant. I hope I am saying that right. But yeah, I moved from Zimbabwe to the UK when I was about 12. So I've been here more than half of my life now.
Superb. I mean, that's what I wanted to delve into. So I'm pretty sure you're aware, majority of people in this network are investing in property in all sorts of different strategies. And in terms of that, it is a business, and you're the perfect person to speak to about businesses. And coming from Zimbabwe, as in, it's a completely new country, new culture. Everything is different to what you're used to. And then you come here and do something as crazy as starting a business. What is wrong with you?
Wrong.
Tell me about that thought process. At what point did you think, I'm gonna delve into business? I'm gonna try to actually run a business rather than just employment.
That's a very good question. And I think I started my first business when I was 16. So I ran a tutoring company, I think for like 5-6 years. So it sort of happened, if I'm honest. I don't think I ever thought, oh yeah, I'm going to get into business. I just finished my GCSEs. I'd got really good grades. And then somebody approached me and were like, I'm starting a tutoring company. I'd love to have you on board, because quite a lot of the students were studying for GCSE, so they were a little bit younger than me. And then I thought, well, yeah, I have the knowledge to help these people, so why not? And that's how it started. And it kind of like got me on. It wasn't a full-time role, so it just like pay me for how many ever sessions I came to teach. So that's literally how I started. And of course, when you're 16, you think, yeah, I'm free from my parents, so now I can go make my own money. I don't need to ask anybody. And you kind of go into like your hospitality roles and all these other jobs that you can kind of get your hands on to get that extra cash. But I think that taste of tutoring was like my first, like, oh, actually I can actually work on my own terms, because I dictated when I wanted to go work. I wanted to do more hours, I could. If I didn't, I didn't. There was no one pressuring me to say like, oh yeah, like, KPIs, report what, do you know what I mean? So at that point, that's when I knew that going forward, whatever like career trajectory I was going to get into, I always had to make time. So for me, like my top priority for wanting to, be an entrepreneur is to make time for myself to then be able to, do the things that I enjoy. But most importantly, I think based on I'm a Christian, so apologies if other people aren't, but for me as well, that in itself, I think propels me to the businesses that I start. When I look back and look at everything that I've done or I've started, it's all been about serving people and what like value can I bring to them? How can I use what I know to better someone else's life? Because I feel like, like you said, moving from Zim to the UK, there's so many things that I didn't know. My parents, or much like the majority of the African community, were like lawyer, doctor, all of these things. And I just felt like everybody in my community, from church right down to everybody in the Zim community, was in healthcare. So I felt like my potential was always kind of capped to, I'm definitely going to be in healthcare. Like I thought I was going to be a doctor, I was going to be a nurse, but then actually exploring what opportunities exist outside of that, I was like, I would really welcome if somebody had taken time to, like, with career advice or with business. So many people in our community are doing exceptionally well, but they just don't talk about it.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, you're a millionaire. You're just there. You're not telling me. You're just there like, yeah, do healthcare, do doctor, So I think, it's just been a combination of those things. So I always think like, how can I serve people, and how can I then, use that serving people to then create a better life for myself and
Absolutely.
for future generations.
Absolutely. I love how you put it as what value can I add to other people, rather than how much more money can I make, right? It's kind of like a different, complete twist to it. How much value, or what value can I add to other people? And then the money kind of follows you. I love that. Absolutely love that. So in the transition, so you also touched on the, the mentality of our parents and people who came here when they were a lot older, in terms of certain career paths that are classed as, this is what you're suited for, right? This is what you should be doing. And this is where I was coming from when I said, what's wrong with you? Because we had to fight a lot of people's mentality in terms of, what is it that you're actually planning to do? I'm planning to do this. What?
Yeah.
This is what you should be doing, right? So what challenges would you say that stand out to you? What challenges did you face in terms of that transition and going against that grain, I guess?
I think yeah, that's a very good question, Muzi. To be honest, I think it's come with age. I was reading this book. It's called The Outliers, and it was going into how, white families and parents bring up their children compared to how Black families raise their children. And it it was kind of like playing on the emotion of, like, with Black families, we're sort of taught to be subservient, when that whole thing of, like, if somebody is like at a higher place and authority and all of those things, you kind of have to be very subservient to them. Even when you get into a career, you're like, oh, 20,000. Oh, thank you so much for 20,000. And yet your value is like worth 40,000. Whereas like with the like white families in this book, what they were saying was, a mom was taking their son to the dentist, and she was asking her child, like, what are you going to be asking the dentist? What questions do you have? If you don't feel comfortable, talk about these things. And so I feel like that kind of mindset was really challenging to get over, because I saw it like when I went to A levels or college, you kind of move away from the miss to on a first name basis. And even at like university, it's even more so completely different. So I think that was like one of the challenges that I had to get through. And I think it just came with time and with age, because I didn't have anyone to kind of tell me about those things. All I had was, treat your elders with respect. Don't challenge authority. If they say go left, you just go left. You don't question it. So I thought that was like really like one of the barriers that I really had to get over in my mind. And I think it more so with time and age, it is about just like, knowing like what you want to get, and then becoming that person that is able to get that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So trying to get over that was, it was really difficult. But it just comes to a point, like I was like, you know, is it my parents' life? Is it my community life? Or is it my life? You know? And it's my life. So at the end of the day, I dictate what I want to get out of it. You know, and
Absolutely.
for me to get to where I need to be, I need to completely become something different to what I've been taught. So that mindset shift, I don't even have like the right steps to get over it. It's just something that you have to work on to overcome. It's challenging, but it's doable. It takes time, but it's still doable. So I think it's very much like an inner work sort of thing
Yeah.
to do. So
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Now, this is a conversation that we tend to have with a lot of investors around us, especially that have the same background. Now, this is not a challenge just unique to Zimbabweans, by the way. It could be other people who are actually born here. Some of them face that challenge of this is what's normal. And as soon as you go out and try to do anything slightly different entrepreneurially, investing in property, it's actually out of the norm. And when I hear you talk about it this way in terms of the mindset shift, it's quite refreshing. And it's a similar thing that most people actually talk about. I've been working at this job for the past God knows how long. My mom has been doing it, my grandma has been doing it. That's how we've been doing it. I really don't like it, but it's just how things have been. So the idea of trying something I like that might actually just be successful is difficult for me to do on my own, let alone to try to get support from the people that I have in my circle. So you pointing it that way is just really powerful. I'm just gonna
add on to that. Sorry, it's really strange. I mean, I know that is the mentality of like our community, and I think we're slowly shifting. But like even back home in Zimbabwe, like my family growing up, I've always known them to hustle. So it's like really strange, like the dynamics of it, because like, you know, even back home up to now, like entrepreneurship, it's just entrepreneurship. There's no, I'm going to get a job, because for some people, they don't get that liberty. You know, you used to get like our grandparents. I remember my grandma would go to South Africa, order some clothes and then come back and sell them. Like, you know, it's been there. Like, and I truly feel like it is in our blood. And sometimes society can kind of like want to reduce that because, you know, we're here, it's a new country, or we have something to prove, or there's bills to be paid. And so we try and find like a safe way and a safe option to do things, which, you know, which means that we don't take many risks. But, you know, I feel like as Africans, entrepreneurship and like just hustling and starting businesses and growing them is just in our blood.
It's just normal, isn't it? And that's a really good point that you've just raised there, because majority of people, even now, hustling is just a normal thing. You know, even if you've got your full-time job, there's always something that they're doing on the side to try to generate a bit more cash. So a very, very interesting way of looking at it. Good point there. Good point. We've just had more people that have joined. I'm just gonna reset the room. Just to let you guys know, thank you very much for joining. We're having a chat with Ruth Dhliwayo, Dube. She's transitioning at the moment because she recently got married. Congratulations again. So we're just gonna have we're just having a conversation about her business, her thought process, and how she actually runs a business. And we're gonna go into her businesses as well and what it is that she does and how she might potentially be able to help you as well. We are the Zim Property Investors, just a network of people that invest in property all around the world. So if you're interested in getting to know more about that, feel free to reach out, drop a comment. And also, if you've got any questions for Ruth, please drop them in the comments, in the chat on Zoom, and we will answer them. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to drop a comment and we'll follow on that. So there's something that I saw in the information that I was looking up about you. I know it freaks people out when I say I was looking you up. You've put the information out there for us to see. It's your fault. We're going to go out and see it. Now, it points out that you are also, another hat of yours is a personal coach. You're also a personal coach. Tell me a bit more about that. What is a personal coach and why would we need one?
So there's so many different ways of saying you're a coach. And just to backtrack onto like my experience and how I kind of got here. So as I mentioned, you know, came here, didn't know anything, healthcare. Then I started going to uni. I got a job in the railway. Long story short, I then went into corporate. And that whole mentality of being subservient, I struggled so much. The first 2 years of my career, I really struggled to kind of grasp my trajectory and my growth. So I felt I many times like I was doubting myself, and I was just like, I'm not good enough. And I was like the only Black person on my team of 60. I was the only youngest person, I was like the only person in my 20s. Everyone else was 40 and above, and then that whole like, oh, be subservient, like is your boss. If they say like, go do printing, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. But that's not my job description. Do you know what I mean? So I really struggled with that. And it was at that point I just started doing like really like small things on my social media. Like, I think it was like Snapchat. I would just document my day, and I would just like air out my concerns and my frustrations and ask other people, like, how did you deal with things like this? And my friend was like, this is really helpful, because I also go through the same challenges, and I just never really know who to kind of like talk to. And this was before I even knew networking was a thing. So here I was in my corporate, just struggling, just going there 9 to 5. I'm like, oh God, I have to come here again. So I started like really like investing in like career coaching, going to networking events, just increasing my own knowledge and just developing myself in a way. And that whole thing coming back to how do I serve other people? I had a young sister who was, quite young, and I thought I wouldn't want her to go through the same challenges that I'm going through. So I started like doing like career advice and career coaching based on my challenges that I'd gone through and how I then eventually overcame them, and the tips that, kind of helped me kind of then be able to accelerate in my career path. So that's how I started as like a career coach. And I think through doing that, and then eventually like doing the business management and consultancy, I realized that whether it's business or career, coaching is about like working on the person. You can't grow your career if you aren't ready to grow yourself. And so that's why I now kind of like shifted from like career coaching to just personal coach. So I work with people to just help them improve on their self-belief, and just kind of like working on the mindset to know like whatever avenue you're going to get into, you don't just like magically wake up and you apply for a job and you get it. You still have to develop your skills, you still have to develop how you think, you have to develop your networks, your connections, all of those things. And that's like a personal thing. It's not a business thing, it's not a career thing. And so that's why I now say that I'm a personal coach.
Wow.
Yeah.
So taking it up from your own experiences in struggling with direction and what it is that you want to do, and asking yourself whether where you are is where you actually want to be, and being sent to do some printing jobs that are not in your job description without challenging the boss.
Yeah.
I can imagine how many people are thinking now, oh, that's me right now. At least you were doing printing. We were making cups of teas and all sorts.
Oh, it was a whole plethora, like it was a long list, but it wasn't in my job description.
But you'd never challenge it. Okay, whatever you say, that's what we do. But yeah, I completely understand that. And from the way that you've described the concept of a personal coach and what it is that you would do, it doesn't sound like it limits to any particular career, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I think that's the beauty of it, because with career coaching, what I found was, to be fair, the tips and the different techniques that you can use apply to every industry. But it's more than that, because you don't just want to grow your career. It could be, like we just talked about, you've got a career, you've got your 9 to 5, but also you've got your side hustle, you've got your other business that you're trying to start. So how do you manage that, and how do you bring that together? Do you know what I mean? So working on making sure that you have the capacity and you have the right skill sets to grow in whatever it is that you want to do. So it's not limited at all. It's about working on you. So
100%.
Yeah.
100%. There's a thing that we say in the property world, but then it's actually quite relevant anywhere else, that your business is only going to grow as big as you grow, right? You are the limit. You are the limit of your business. So if you don't continue growing, your business won't grow either. And this is one of the reasons why I picked on this whole idea of a personal coach and what it is that you do and how you can actually assist with some of the people that are currently struggling in their property businesses now. A lot of people may think, oh, my business is not working because, the markets, the economy, the prices, energy, this and that, and you're forgetting to look at the biggest factor of your business, which is yourself. So I love the way that you've actually put that there.
No, thank you.
I wanted to ask as well. I mean, we've touched already on the fact that you as a Zimbabwean who has come to the UK, obviously there's that whole change element. With what you've experienced now, because the first time I actually met you, I was listening to your talk. We're in an event and I was listening to your talk, and there's some amazing stuff that you shared on that. And what I picked up on that is you are helping young people, but you're also having serious conversations with older people in trying to change mindsets as well in terms of how we see things, especially when it comes to the UK. From your conversations and your experience, what are the the mindsets or the thought processes that you'd like to see change the most in our community? Anything that stands out?
I think being open. Yeah, I think being open and being ready to accept new opportunities, I think, is one thing. And just having a growth mindset. And, I think a lot of things always come down to your mindset, because if you're fixed in your ways, you will never truly see the potential of what is achievable, what you can get. I feel like our community very much has a fixed mindset. And I don't mean for all of the people. I'm just, kind of saying as a collective that, our intelligence, our talents and our abilities, they're kind of like fixed traits. But I think for our community, being open is a really big thing that we have to accept, and not just there's these traditional ways of growing or making money or succeeding in your career, but actually there's a whole other world that you don't know. So just actually knowing that you don't know everything is like a really big thing. I see this with my mom and my sister. My mom was like, yeah, I know things. And obviously, like, I'm a big sister. So I'm like, you're the parent. But I'll be there thinking like, yeah, there's other avenues, there's other ways of doing things, and like something I'm passionate about, because I will say this to anyone who wants to listen. University, for example, going to university is great. And please do not take this the wrong way. Yeah, no. Again, based on my experience, right? Because I wanted to be a doctor. So I did like biomedical science, and then I was going to top up to be a doctor. But then after my biomedical science degree, I really looked at myself and I thought, whoa, girl, what are you good at? Because yeah, you like science, but what are you really good at? And I love like bringing people together to achieve a common goal. That's just me. So project management made sense. And that's why then I topped up with, I did a master's in project management, and luckily that's what I've been doing for the last 9 years. But if I look back at myself, if I had taken the time out when I was 18, 16, 17, 18 to know what my strengths are and what my abilities are, I could have got to being a project manager a lot earlier. And perhaps I wouldn't even have needed to go to university, because as long as I have a qualification and get work experience, I can get into project management. So it's like things like that. Like, yes, there's traditional ways of doing it, but now with the world changing, what other avenues can be explored? Take accounting, for example, because I have quite a lot of accounting friends. You do your 3-year degree in accounting, and then you have to specialize, and then you have to get accounting qualifications on top of that for you to like, you start getting paid good money. If our community was open to other avenues of getting there, perhaps, they could be saying, oh, why don't you do a degree apprentice? Because you get your degree, you get the experience, you get your qualifications. So by the end of the 3 years, you're a lot better than someone who's just gone to university. You know what I mean? Of course, there are degrees that you need to go to if you want to be a doctor, a surgeon, and all those things. But I suppose being open to how we can all arrive at the same place is one thing. The second thing, which is really important to me, is networking. Actually saying your story. I think the most powerful thing anyone can do is say their story, whatever their story looks like. So many people have been on so many different journeys that if they just spoke about it, they don't know how much that could inspire someone else who may be struggling in that moment to pivot as well. So I'd say those two things are really what I would say. Yeah, I think our community could kind of learn, and that's what I would love to see, that everybody's so open to new ideas. Everybody knows that they don't know everything, and actually they can take direction from somebody who's 10 years old or somebody who's 16 years old, because they're living in a completely different age to what they potentially have been exposed to. And just, yeah, being supportive of one another and not just quickly shaming somebody because of their failures, but actually, you know, saying, oh, actually, oh, are you struggling in that bit? I know someone who does it, or I know people who do it. I always find like people are always kind of like so quick to say, yeah, you know, I built $1 million business, but they don't say like how they did it. They don't say about the connections they used to get there, about the funding they got, about the people they spoke to. So yeah, I think those are the things that I
like
would
the concept of talking about the glory behind it, but not talking about the challenges and what it takes to actually get there, because it's always nice to be seen with that Ferrari, but not so much about how I actually got to that point, right?
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. Love how you actually responded to that. What stands out for me in the two parts that you spoke about is knowing that you don't actually know it all, or knowing that there's a lot more to learn. I think that's a challenge, not necessarily just for people in our community or the adults in our community. It's just a generic thing, really. It's a difficult thing to tell someone who's been, you know, learning about something for such a long time. They go to uni for 3 years for their degree. They go for a further couple of years to get their master's, just for you to tell them that they don't know everything is a little bit offensive to them. So it's a difficult thing for anyone to actually acknowledge that, okay, yes, that works, but there are other opportunities as well. And this is, again, another part of the conversation that we have with the people in our networks, with some of our mentees in terms of property. We grow up with, you know, we grow up with our siblings and our parents, and that's our inner circle. And then we go to school, and then we have our friends, and then we have our workmates, and we always have a certain circle of people. And then you become the one person who is exposed to something new. Naturally, you want to come back with that new idea to your normal circles, and then you try to convince them that this is a thing, and you're already sort of like 10 steps behind, because you're using all your energy to convince people that are not there at that particular point, right? And then in most cases, in trying to convince them, you then fail yourself and you end up not actually going for it. Now, in that concept, and this is the reason why I'd asked the question about what would you want to see change in our community, so to speak, but then this is something that goes around everywhere. In that change, what would you advise from your perspective? I've now identified that I want to do property as a business. I understand the concept of it. I understand that this is something that can work. I think I really like it. And I want to go back and tell mom. I want to go back and tell my brother. I want to go back and tell my friends. They don't get it. Not because they're not clever or anything. They're just not there. They don't get it. And then obviously in a nice way, they think they're protecting us and they try to talk me out of it. In that situation, what would you advise someone does?
Well, there is a saying that being an entrepreneur is a lonely journey. So I think the first thing is to, if you are, you know, so we're kind of stepping into that, is to know that people just aren't gonna get it, and that's okay. So I think that's like the first thing that you need to know in yourself, because if you don't, like you said, you're going to be telling everybody else, and their comments could potentially limit your potential and limit you to grow. So what you need to know is, if you have an idea, it's yours. And again, I kind of go biblically with this. If God has given you a vision, it's yours. It's not for anyone else. And only you will ever understand it. Not everyone else may understand it. So I think just knowing that, first of all, is like, you know, you're like miles ahead. I don't think that stops you from telling other people about the opportunity. But I think when you have that belief in yourself, even if you tell someone and they're like, oh no, well, why do you want to do that? You know, you can stand firm in your belief that you know what you're doing. And obviously, I'm assuming you do know what you're doing. But of course, you know, come to learning and being an expert in your field and, you know, putting in that work, you can be rooted in your belief of where you see the business going. Do you know what I mean? If we look at like so many people in business that started, or like Walt Disney, or, you know, a lot of people, you know, they had this vision and they told everybody, even like investors said no. And then now look at them now, they're like billion-dollar industries. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you just have to believe in yourself and your abilities to know that, you know, you owe it to yourself to give it a try. And yes, talk about it, but don't let those beliefs then influence what you were going to do.
Absolutely, 100%. Love that. Yeah, so talk about it. However, don't necessarily try to delve into their beliefs if they don't actually believe in what you're doing. So it's not an easy thing, though, believing in yourself, especially when it comes to, I mean, ideally, if you know what you're talking about. At the moment, if I were to tell someone who doesn't know me that I'm looking to delve into a property deal in this area, and these are the things, I'm comfortable, even if they say, I don't think that's a good idea, I'm comfortable with what I'm doing because I've collated all of this experience. I've been doing it for a while. However, I'm at the start. I understand the theory. There's a lot of things that I potentially don't understand. There's a lot of things that I've probably overlooked, but I think it's something I really want to go for. In that situation where I technically don't know what I'm doing. That's the truth. I don't actually know what I'm doing, but I still want to go for it. Is there any advice you'd give me in that situation?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I live by this. Find someone else who's done it.
Love it.
Literally, I feel like every time I want to explore something, I look into my own network and see who's done it. And then I go and I ask them, how did you do it? And I ask if, you know, they can mentor me, which is really important. So I think if people don't have mentors, please get mentors who are doing what you want to do, because at least you have, you know, there's that saying like standing on the shoulder of giants, you know, that's really important. If you want to, you know, if you see where you want to go, but don't really know how to get there, find somebody with the knowledge, find somebody who's done it, who can hold your hand through the whole process. And not only, you know, that, but also finding a network, a supportive group, like as you have here now, you know, people that have questions. I've seen in the group, because I'm in it, people that have questions, you know, they pose their questions, and somebody who is knowledgeable can say, oh, actually do it this way or do it that way. So I think those two things are really important if you are starting out. Again, I live by this. Don't be like, develop an appetite to fail, but fail quickly. You know, much like going into business, it's a risk. Of course, we know that it's a risk, but I don't think that should stop you from, you know, pursuing it. It just means that you need to make sure that you have the right tools, and that could mean human resources around you to actually see that business through.
Absolutely. Love that. There's a thing, I heard this from it was Les Brown, actually. I don't know whether it was his saying or he actually picked it from someone else, but he said, hang around the barbershop. And this is the idea that you're talking about in terms of networking. It's like you need to hang around the barbershop. The idea is if you hang around the barbershop for long enough, sooner or later, you're going to get a haircut. And he was talking about the fact that in that situation where you don't necessarily know what you're doing, you haven't got enough knowledge and experience to try to convince someone else that this idea works, but you know that this is what you want to do, then spend time with the people that are already doing it. Spend time with the people that are in that industry, so that you're not trying to convince anyone. All you're doing is soaking up even more knowledge and experience, so you have a better chance of succeeding. So love that.
Oh no, I do like Les Brown, and even just his story about how, you know, he was going to the football field and he was resilient. You know, he knew what he wanted to do. And I think, you know, much like when people are starting a business, yes, you've got the theory, but actually knowing where you want to get to, like, be so clear and have a vivid image of what, you know, your success will look like, you know, I think is like really important as an entrepreneur. It's easy to say, yeah, Muz is running a business, is getting, you know, 200 grand a month from this, I can do it. But it doesn't always necessarily work like that, even though I may have the same knowledge that you have, but it doesn't work like that. You know, the reasons for why you're doing it and why you're succeeding is because you've actually taken the time to not just get the theory, but to fully understand how to monetize your theory into a full-grown business, you know, understanding what problem you're solving. And that problem will look individual for everybody. You know, as much as there's property people on here, their reason for doing property or the need that they're trying to solve is very different. Do you know what I mean? So by having that, you know that this is a business that you are driving, because a lot of the time, I think, and in our community especially, you know, I have clients that want to start dom care because it makes money. And then when I ask them why, who have you done your research? What need are you even like solving in that area? They don't know. They just know that someone else is doing it and they're making money. And so they fail quickly because they're copying somebody. But when you fully understand your need, and then, you know, you develop your unique selling point, you're going to be more driven to succeed, because it's not about copying anyone. You're doing a business that is tailored to you, and which is really important.
Absolutely true. And you've touched on this is a bit of a nerve, this one, when it comes to starting a business for the sake of making money. And a lot of people, and I know a lot of people may be in the position where they're thinking, well, why else would you start a business? We're here to make money, right? And the best person I've ever heard explain this in a certain way was a guy called Simon Sinek. Right. He's a fantastic guy. Definitely look him up if you haven't ever heard anything about him. So he talked about the mistake that people make when they start a business. If you start a business for the sake of making money, a business is like a car. Money is the fuel. So you want fuel to keep the car moving towards a certain purpose. Like you said, what problem are you solving? What value are you adding? What's your business actually doing for who? Right? That's where the focus is. Who are you trying to help with that business? Money is the fuel that keeps the car moving. You do not buy a car for the sake of getting fuel, right? Fuel is what keeps the car moving. I was like, wow, I couldn't have thought of a better way of looking at it. So if you focus more on solving problems, if you focus more on adding value, the money will come to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
And I literally always do this exercise with my clients, is like, literally, give me one word that will tell me about the problem that you're solving. So, you know, it's always like a sentence, or it's always something, you know, but being able to kind of reduce that to just one word of the problem that you're solving, whether it's homelessness or, you know, isolation or depression or whatever it is, having that one word, I think like could be a really strong compass, and then pulling, you know, your business. And I always say, like, you know, like you said, yeah, we all want to make money. Of course, that's like an end result. But if you focus on value, I think that's a much more better thing to focus on, because if you focus on money, when is it ever going to be enough? Because that goalpost will always keep moving. You hit 100K, you're next to 1 million, so you never really then get satisfied, you know. But if you think about, you know, what value am I creating for somebody, going again to the Bible, the woman at the well, you know, she was then, you know, Jesus made, you know, I'm just summarizing here, so apologies. She saw that Jesus had done a miracle, and then she went and she's preached so much about it because he had really like impacted her. So I always say to people, like, always like, don't overpromise but over deliver. And all you need is that one woman that's going to be at the well, that one customer or that one client that you put your effort into, because they are then going to go and tell other people about what you have done for them. And then that attracts more people to come to your business. So you don't even think about money, but you think about value, because if you can give value to one person, they're going to be your marketing right there. You don't need to go do Google ads, because
free
now,
as well.
Exactly. It's free. It's a client testimonial on top of that as well. And that is what attracts people to your business. And then ultimately, you know, you get money from that. So yeah, I think money is
100%.
great, but we will never be satisfied.
Love it, love it. I've got a question in the chat here. Guys, just to remind you, any questions that you've got for Ruth, please drop them in the chat and I'll read them out for you. So Charlene says, you've mentioned failed fast. I've heard this a lot. How did you keep going through if you technically fail? Because there is a thing at the back of my head, like this is not God telling me that it isn't my path.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Interesting one, that one. Very
It
interesting
is.
one.
I'm trying to understand, like, just the last bit about God
Yeah.
telling me
So
that this isn't my path. Is
so
that
in terms of the failing itself, so you know the concept of if you've just failed at something, maybe it's God telling you that this is not your path, right?
oh
So
right.
how do you keep going if at the same time you're thinking, is it maybe God telling me this isn't my path? Or is this the concept of I need to fail fast and learn from whatever I failed on to keep going? How do you navigate that?
Yeah. I think, different, like the fail spectrum is going to be different for everybody. Somebody may fail and be happy to lose 10,000. Someone might fail and be happy to lose 50,000, so kind of like that fail is it is going to be different for everybody. So, as much as I may give guidance and my thinking on this, I want everyone to know, like, it is going to be different for everyone.
Yeah.
When I say fail fast, it's just, I suppose it's being able to know, like, okay, if this didn't work, how can I look at my failure? How can I learn from the failure? It might not even be the business idea is the problem. It might be that you didn't have the right processes or the right systems in place or the right people in place. So when you fail, you look at what it is that could be changed and you improve. That's what I mean by fail fast. So don't drag out something, like keep failing and failing and failing without actually looking at what the root problem is. And that's what a lot of people do. We fail and we're like, yeah, like, no, this is definitely what I want to do. Let me do it again. But we don't even take a minute to evaluate why did it fail? Because by evaluating and actually, looking back and seeing that, you might be able to identify that, okay, this was wrong. Let me improve that. And you try again. And, you may fail again, you may succeed, but with business, it's a two-way stream. You either fail or you succeed, but the benefit of that is that you learn and you grow from it. Maybe that business idea wasn't great, but if you were very clear on the problem that you were trying to solve, you can think, okay, if this avenue didn't work or this product didn't work, what other products can I introduce to still, reduce that problem that I'd identified? And so you pivot in that way. So actually being able to be adaptive and to pivot and to have that growth mindset, I think those components will really help you to overcome failing.
Yeah. Oh, love the way that you answer that question as well. I'm hoping this clarifies it as well. Thanks for the question, Charlene. She's just confirmed. Thank you so much. That makes so much sense. I think also as well, just to add on to that, it's also important for us to actually define what success actually looks like. Because it's very easy for someone to say, I'm looking to make 100,000 in my first year of business. Yeah. And if I made 85,000, it's technically a failure because I haven't hit that goal. But then you don't actually look at the progress. I think it's easy to actually look at it as a black and white. It's either you fail or you success. But in, like you've mentioned, in the failures themselves, if you identify what you're learning on it, what it is that you've actually pointed out, where is the progress on this? In the property world, we talk about the fact that even though I haven't had my deal, I've managed to speak to a letting agent for the very first time ever. That's progress. You pick that up. I've managed to actually have a conversation with a lender. I've had a conversation with a broker. I've spoken to solicitors and held conversations with them. I've networked with people and held conversations about property. All of that is still progress. But if you've just focused on the fact that I still don't have a deal, you could be disheartened. So we have to try to define what success looks like at the start as well. What is it that you're actually learning from it as you go along? So well put there. Thank you very much. Okay. Awesome. I'm starting to see some questions coming in as well. Please, guys, feel free to ask questions, and let's suck out as much information from Ruth as possible whilst we have her here. We might not see her again for another year. So let's squeeze out all the information as possible. Tabo, is just to add, also it depends how you define failure. Is it losing money or not meeting your targets, which you have set yourself? Awesome way of looking at it as well, Tabo. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate it. So as a person who actually started the business young and are still really young as well, I'm not going to ask you how old you are, Ruth, because I will be depressed. So as a person who actually started the business whilst we were young, what advice would you like to give to anyone who is young now? Actually, this is a two-part question. So the advice that you'd give to the young person who's thinking, I would like to start this as well. I would like to start a business. There is a problem that I think I can solve with whatever idea I have, right? What advice would you have for them? And also, what advice would you have for the parent who says, oh, I see what you mean, Ruth. You're making so much sense. Now, how do I actually handle the situation where I can convince my kids to actually get involved in this type of thing?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I'm not a parent yet.
But lucky you.
You know, from seeing it from the other side, I hope I can kind of help answer that. I think from a parent perspective, it would be good if, you know, parents do put their children into these environments where they are challenging themselves and where they are solving problems by, you know, through entrepreneurship. I don't think it's something that like a parent will wake up and say, oh yeah, like, you know, be an entrepreneur. I think it's the small steps and the small actions that parents do to get their children to be comfortable to explore entrepreneurship. You know, it comes down to the environment. You know, are we pushing our kids? Are we putting them in situations that are, you know, uncomfortable in a way, but uncomfortable for growth? Are we bringing them to networking events? Are they being exposed to these opportunities that we want them to then, you know, ultimately be able to take on further down the line? So I think it's a combination of those things of, you know, putting our children in those same rooms that we are in, for them to also, you know, start expanding their mind to think of all the possibilities that are, you know, that are achievable and that are out there. So I think from a parent perspective, that's the advice that I would give. And I think from a child perspective, and I think it kind of goes both ways, is, you know, for parents, if your child is coming and saying, I've got this idea and so forth, I think try not to shut it down immediately. Listen, even if you don't know or you don't agree, just listen. And I think, you know, as parents, as I've seen, we're so quick to say, no, it's not going to work because I know this person who did it didn't work, or like, I don't know what that is, so it's not going to work because I don't know what it is. You know, there's always so many reasons to why we think it's not going to work. But to really kind of build the confidence of children, I think if they have ideas, as wild as they may be, just listen, maybe go to bed at night, do a good Google search, and then have that conversation when you kind of have your facts of, okay, so break it down to me. How exactly do you think of doing this? So, you know, you're a bit more supportive, because I feel like, you know, a lot of ideas are shut down because there isn't that supportive environment around people. So how do our kids then grow or become entrepreneurs, etc., if, you know, at home we're not even supporting them? That's the advice I would give to parents. And I think for children, it's a little bit difficult. I guess I'm just kind of like using the spectrum of, like, you know, all ages of being young. It is difficult to want to start something, but I think goes down to find someone who, you know, is doing it. We live in a digital age. You know, we've got so like social media. It's easy to find these people and just reaching out to them and saying, you know, hey, this is what I want to do. You know, don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't think that you need to do everything yourself. That's why, you know, people and groups and support groups and networking and mentors are there, because they generally want to help somebody else get to where they have got to. You know, people are just itching to pour out, to help other people. So don't do it alone. Go and ask for help.
Absolutely. Love that. Love that. And I'm hoping that's pieces of advice that you guys can actually take away as well, for all the really young people and the parents as well that I'm looking at here in the group. That's fantastic. Something stands out as well. This goes back to where we actually met. It was the Zim UK Business Chamber, which is absolutely fantastic. And I'm not saying that this just because the chairman is listening and is there. It was actually quite brilliant. And this is where the question is actually coming from. The fact that on that day, if you remember, there's a very young boy who came and actually presented that day. And I'm sorry to say he kind of overshadowed you because he was amazing.
No, he was. I'm
He
not
was
mad at
amazing.
it.
And on that day, I actually thought to myself, how amazing is this that we're actually exposing our kids to this kind of environment? Because typically that environment is for adults, right? You know, like you've grown up and you've started running a business for a while, and you go there with something to present or with something to show. You don't go there just to listen in. It's not a common thing. You actually go there to, you know, share your business card and stuff. And what I saw that day of him, the young child there, and then there was another one as well who was already running a business of baking cakes and stuff like that, which I thought was really fantastic. And I would like to see a lot more of that, which is where the question's coming from. Of what advice would you actually give to the parents and the kids who are looking to do something similar? So, I mean, in terms of that, it kind of goes back as well to what you were talking about earlier on in terms of mindset. And I wanted to ask you a question in terms of mindset itself. Um, there's a lot to take on, and I think the word mindset covers a huge aspect. A huge aspect of things. And I know we'll probably need 4 days worth of a conversation just to go deep into it. But what advice, I guess, what would you say to someone who is looking to actually get involved in this? How can you strengthen your mindset, or what kind of mindset do you need to have to get into an environment that is so uncomfortable? And when I say so uncomfortable, you don't know what you're about to get into. And the people that you've always trusted with advice don't understand it either. So you're going against the people that you've always known, and you're going into something that you don't know. It's so uncomfortable. It's out of the comfort zone. What kind of mindset do I need to have to go through that?
Yeah, oh, it's a very loaded question. I have a few things I had prepared, just in terms of mindset, but I would say, don't be like, keep learning. A lot of people think business owners know everything. They don't know everything. I found myself Googling most of the things, like how to market, how to do SEO, how to do on Google. So just, I think, be open to like that continued learning process, and just know that you may not know everything, but you are open to learning, and you are learning, and you're kind of growing and expanding your knowledge. I think that would be one of the things that an entrepreneur needs to have. I would say, being accountable to yourself, taking responsibility when things succeed, when things fail, but actually, like, being accountable to yourself, I think, is like one big thing that's hard to do, but I think it's really necessary. And I think another thing, like, it goes back to what you're saying, like, don't be concerned with what other people have to say, because that can deter your focus. If you're focusing on what other people have to say or their expectations, it kind of slows you down and takes you away from your purpose as well. So just knowing, like I said, entrepreneurship is a lonely journey, but just be rooted in yourself. I would also say, again, having that growth mindset is really good. Because you know that your abilities and skills can be developed, so it's not fixed. I always say, if there's scope to learn, you can do anything. I think you can do anything in this world, because it just means you need to learn. So anyone can learn, right? So just not being fixed in your mindset, but having that like growth mentality of, I can learn everything. My abilities can change if I put dedication and hard work into this. So that's another thing. Don't focus on your failures. I think, we've already touched on it, and it's so easy to say, I kind of failed, of course, after you define what success and failure looks like. But don't be too focused on that, because that again can also start adding limiting beliefs, and you start thinking, I can't do this, I can't this, I can't that. But actually, you're limitless, I think. Embrace risk is another thing. Nothing is ever guaranteed in the entrepreneurial space. Anything can happen. So just be open to embracing the risk, and pivoting and learning and evaluating and then growing. I don't think it's a linear process. It kind of like swells up. Sometimes you go down, sometimes it goes up. So just like embracing that, and just like focusing on like your goal, being resilient, being adaptable, all those other skills that come with it as well. And I would just say, like, there's a lot of like a personal development element to it as well. Like when it comes to your mindset, what are your habits? Do you actually have capacity to run a business? You want to run a business, but yet you're like in debt. How are you going to manage getting capital? How are you going to manage getting money? So I think for me, the number one thing I would say about like your entrepreneurial mindset is your capacity to be in business. You look at yourself, you look at your habits. If you're the type of person that does Netflix marathons on weekends, and yet you want to have a successful business, what are you learning?
Shots fired, Ruth. Shots
what
fired.
are you learning? So our habits determine like where we're going to get to, because we're all becoming something, and we're all going to be someone in a week, in a month, in a year's time. So all those little actions that we do every day will help us to be what we want to be or what we don't want to be. And just a commitment to self, I think, is really important.
Yeah. You've touched on so much there, and each of those topics could actually be broken down. So really appreciate you actually going through that. And hopefully that can be very helpful to someone who's considering this and thinking about what to actually focus on. Just going to skip over to the chat, and we've got a question from Svanda. How can one network successfully if they are not always on the ground, but is investing from afar? So how do you network successfully from afar, essentially? What advice would you have for Svanda?
I think now with the pandemic, it's very clear you can network from anywhere. There's Zoom, there's Teams, there's LinkedIn. So I think starting to use certain tools to reach other people. I think, there's so many groups online, participating in those conversations, like one of the things with my my other business partner, every time we speak to somebody and they live in the same town and we're like working on a project, I'm always like, well, can you bring him along? Even though he might not need to be in the rooms, but I'm like, if you're in that moment, if you are investing in someone, try and ask them to be involved in some of the conversations that they're having, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a Zoom meeting, because that then expands your network. And then that person, you never know when you may need to reach out to them. And I would say LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, and following up with emails. So I don't think you necessarily have to be there in person. I think, using the tools that are around you to network with other people are just equally as powerful.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And just so to add on to that, Svanda, you are doing that now. You are actually networking right now, and this is the best way to do it. Absolutely, the absolute ideal way of networking is to be with someone in person. 100%. If the option is there, I would take that any day. Speaking to someone in person, there's no comparison, because the version of connection is so much better when you've got the person in front of you. But it's not always possible, as you've correctly highlighted. It's not always possible, and networking virtually is the way forward now. Majority of networking events are now going virtual anyway. Even now that the world is open for us to actually go out and meet up in person, the virtual networks actually expanded even more after the COVID period. So identify the groups of the whatever interests you. If you're investing in X, Y, and Z, identify the groups that are investing in whatever you're investing in, connect with them, and whatever networking events that they run, join them, every single one of them, and connect with the people that are there. So hope that answers the question. And it looks like Vincent had the same question and just wanted to clarify that. So I hope that answers the question, guys. Please just drop a comment in there, in the chat, just to confirm that that answers the question. I've got a thumbs up from Svanda. Awesome. Thank you very much. Feels wrong to call you Svanda.
Sorry. I would also add, without fully understanding what you mean by investor, but say, for example, I'm investing in Muzi's business, and I want to invest in other business. I could just go to Muzi and say, hey, Muzi, because, if he's running something, he's going to have a list of other people, doing a similar thing. Again, it goes back to that support and that network. I could then say to Muzi, hey, I want to invest in more businesses, do you mind just linking me up with XYZ people? And, Muzi may then decide, okay, I'm going to give you a contact of someone else, or why don't we have a group call? And, using what you have is equally just as important. I don't think people, with networking, you don't have to go too far afield, because you never know like who's very close into your immediate circle. And just using your WhatsApp as well with stories. I know people watch those stories. So, just putting it out there, you just never know what you will get back, is I guess what I'm saying.
Absolutely. You say that about WhatsApp, you'll be amazed how much money we raise from WhatsApp stories.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, 100% agree with that. Thank you guys for the question. Really appreciate that. So for anyone who's got any other questions, we're here until 7 o'clock, guys. We'll have to shut down at 7 o'clock because my wife told me that I need to be back at 7 o'clock. So unfortunately, we can't continue. So at 7 o'clock, we'll be done. Please just ask your questions if you've got any. In the meantime, I want to go back to a word that you used, Ruth, accountability. So you mentioned that one of the things that you would recommend people do is to hold themselves accountable, or even if it's just a case of joining accountability groups where other people who feel the same way can hold you accountable to the things that you say you want to achieve, right? There's an element in terms of accountability and stroke responsibility where it becomes a bit of a gray area for certain people, where if something hasn't quite worked out the way that they wanted it to, they could either hold themselves accountable or be responsible for what didn't work and pick out what actually worked or what they should have done and go forward. And then there's another type of person who then blames themselves and uses the word, I'm taking responsibility, and actually blames themselves, which actually takes them backwards. Like, oh, I'm pretty useless at this. I'm not good with this. I've never been good at this. My dad was right when he said I was useless. My friend was right when he said that I couldn't do this, and still hide behind, I'm taking responsibility. Right. I think there's a difference there between taking responsibility or accountability and blaming yourself. Is there anything that you could say with those different kind of people, or the one who's blaming themselves, to try to identify what to look at in terms of going forward?
Yeah. So I can't help it with my project management hat. Those two words are different, and they have two different meanings. If you're responsible for something, it's very much task orientated. I could very much be accountable for how clean the house is, but my husband is responsible for cleaning the bathroom. So if the bathroom is not cleaned when the guests come here, I have to explain why the bathroom is not clean, because he was responsible for cleaning. So when you're accountable, it's the action that you take as a result of that responsibility element. Task oriented is, so if you're in a business and you're saying to yourself, you're accountable for meeting 100 sales in a month, and in a business you are both responsible and accountable, just always having that thing of, okay, so how do I improve on this? And that comes down to like having your risks and certain like processes in place to say, okay, if this occurs, risks or issues, if this thing occurs, what am I going to do to pivot? And I think that whole thing about blaming yourself is very much a mindset thing. In business, you have to have unwavering commitment to yourself that it has got to work. Yes, it didn't work out, but let's move on. You know, that's that whole fail quickly, learn quickly, improve, move on to the next thing. Because, you know, having that mentality of taking responsibility and kind of like putting myself under the bus, it's only going to pull you back. So what commitment are you having? Are you committing to just any little snag that happens? Yeah, I'm a failure. Or any small thing that happens. Yeah, how do I learn from this? How do I grow? You know, it's a continuous process. It's never going to be easy. Yes, you are going to fail. And yes, you know, things aren't going to work out. But you just have to keep learning, and you have to keep growing, and you have to be adaptive, and you have to pivot in whatever situations that you are. That is what is being accountable, is saying, yes, I'm taking responsibility, didn't work. However, the next thing to do is XYZ to move on from that. So you don't allow yourself to be stuck or like focusing on the things that go wrong, but like be focused on how to move past that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. Love that. And I love the way that you've put that across, actually. And I think it actually defines the two differences, and also how to focus on the positive going forward rather than beat yourself up and actually keep yourself where you are, or even push yourself even further backwards. No doubt in your journey, you have had the naysayers, and we want to hide them and call them the haters. And the ones that actually say straight up that you're not gonna succeed, those ones are pretty clear. I prefer those ones. The ones that I'm actually scared of are the ones that slow me down, that slow you down as a way of trying to protect you, and actually convinced that they're showing love by telling you to slow down, or by telling you that this shouldn't be the case. And they all of a sudden become an expert of what you're about to do when they've never done it before, because they are portraying their own fears on you, if that makes sense. So in your journey, no doubt you've had people that have loved to protect you, and also sort of like told you that you're not going to succeed. And that creates a voice in your head that sort of feeds doubt. My question is, how do you keep that noise down? How do you quieten that voice? You've gotten to where you are now and successful in all these businesses that you're running, and now you're actually helping other people create the same thing that you've created yourself. How do you quieten that noise and keep yourself focused on what you want to achieve?
Yeah, I think you like raised two things. I think for the first thing, the people that are around you, if they're saying slow down, it's so easy for us to say everyone's against us. Everyone doesn't want to see us succeed. But I think it's important to also listen. So I would say for the people that you know, and obviously everybody knows that there are people that generally care about their success, and there's people that don't. They may care about your success and say things that are very different to you. And I use, you know, the example, my husband, he's always like having his own thoughts. And, you know, when we started like dating and also, I used to think like, this guy, what does he know? He wants to bring me back. He wants to do all of these things. But, you know, being able to actually say, okay, so why are you thinking like this? What makes you say that? And, you know, because the people around you may see things that you don't see. And it's, you know, that it's just easy to say, you're right, you're on the right path, all of these things. But I think, yeah, just being able to take a minute back, just slow down and take a step back and ask why they think that way. Because they may be able to highlight areas where, you know, you're lacking and you don't realize because it's you, and then you improve and then you grow. And then there's generally like, yeah, those people that just project their fears. And I think one person will just be able to discern the difference between the two people. And again, it's just that unwavering commitment to yourself. Is if you have this idea, it's not about what anyone else has to say. The only person who can limit you from reaching anything that you want to is yourself, you know? And unless those people are me, I don't really need to listen to them too much. I'm gonna, you know, I'm just gonna persist. I think for me, it's just persistent. I'm just determined, and I'm just persistent. So I will just keep going at it. That's just, yeah. That's
how you shut that noise down. That's how you shut it down. Like, all right,
yeah.
thanks. I'm just gonna do it anyway.
Yeah. it's literally it. And I don't want to lie, sometimes you actually have to embrace that. I
Mm.
don't want to lie and just say to everybody, like, you know, you can just, you know, laser focus. Sometimes, like, even when I'm speaking, I'll be there shaking, like, oh my God, you know, am I going to say the right thing? Am I, you know,
Hey.
it's natural. And I think, you know, just embracing that fear sometimes is where your superpower comes from. But just being able to know, like I said, everything in life, if you can learn it, you can improve. So just knowing, like, okay, perhaps you're not feeling your best, but just put yourself in there anyways. And the more you do that continuously, your comfort zone or your business, the more you grow and the more you develop as a person. So, you know, there's that saying, feel the fear and do it anyways.
100%. That's a great book, by the way. Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. I would recommend anyone and everyone reads that book. Exactly what you've just pointed out there. Love it, love it, love it. So I'm gonna ask the last question. I can see that there's some comments that have been put in there. Fabulous, 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 fabulous. Yeah. So last question, and I'm really interested in this question, or I'm interested in your opinion about this question, by the way, because we've had a conversation before. It's down to what you actually talked about earlier on about coaches and mentors, right? And when it comes to, especially, well, I can only speak about the property world because that's where I live, right? In the property world, when we start talking about getting mentors or getting coaches, um, you have people that sort of like go strongly against it, like really strongly against it. It's like, oh, the information is out there on the internet. You can just go get that information. You don't need to pay anyone to tell you stuff that you can go read about, you know. The money that you're spending on that mentor, the money you're spending on that coach, you could have actually used it to invest in this particular property or in this particular business, in that venture or whatever it is. What's your opinion about starting with a mentor or starting with a coach, rather than actually trying to figure it out yourself, fail, and then come back to pay for a coach?
Well, what's the cost of failure? I
Mm.
think. Would you rather invest that £500 to get you a coach who makes the process of, you know, or the journey that bit much more smoother or helps you to avoid certain pitfalls? Or do you want to use that £500 to fail just to come back to the start again? So and it's different for everyone. Personally, for me, I invest and I outsource and I invest in things that I know I'm not great at. Like I said, I spend most time on Google, and if Google doesn't give me the answer, I go on Fiverr, I go into my network. I'm like, do you know this? I'd rather pay you the money, because that way I'm saving myself the headache of trying to learn something that I'm just never going to get. I'm going to do it the wrong way. And then I'm going to be back to square one. So it comes down to you. And I think it's all about making time in your business as well. If you have a coach, it means, like, you know, you're giving time back to yourself to actually then focus on the things that matter. But if you don't have a coach, you're spending time on spinning all those plates that you need to in business that actually you don't have time, and one could slip, and then what? You're kind of like back to square one. I think it's a personal decision, but I always think, like, you know, it is investing. It's the same thing. It's investing in your learning. It's investing in yourself. So it's about what the cost of failure for everyone looks like.
Love that. What is the cost of failure? What is the cost of failure? So that's a really good way of looking at it, actually. Love that. What is the cost of failure? And the way that you actually answered that question, I didn't quite expect you to answer it that way. That's profound. Love it. So I will definitely be stealing your ideas, and I will be talking about it like I made it up, just to let you know.
No, by all
If you
means.
find me somewhere in social media, say using your words, I did warn you.
No, it's okay.
But I love that, actually. We always say that it's very wise to learn from your mistakes, but it's even wiser to learn from someone else's mistakes, right? So the person who you are working with as a coach, the person you're working with as a mentor, has gone through those mistakes that you're about to take yourself through, and they can navigate and avoid those pains for you. And then you can learn from your own experience as you go along with someone holding your hand. And I mean, when we talk about the amount of money that we have spent, myself and my wife, in terms of getting mentors and getting shown how to invest in property, a lot of people are thinking, why would you spend so much money? But the returns are just not, it just makes it so,
Worth
you know,
it.
it's a no-brainer really when you
Yeah.
actually get the returns and think, okay, I only paid this and this is how much I got out of it. And guess what? I'm probably going to get even more now because I've just got that knowledge from them. So it's
Mhm.
just amazing in terms of getting someone who can help you through it. And I'm glad you pointed it out, and especially the fact that you're also a personal coach. So we'll
Yeah.
definitely be having a conversation on
Yeah.
how we can essentially get some help from you in being the best version of ourselves, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to just leave people with a thought just on that, whether it's, mentoring or even just like, courses and so forth. Um, oh, I've lost my train of thought there. It's gonna come to me. Um, oh, what was I gonna say? I'll come back to it. I've just lost my train of thought.
It's that late in the day, Ruth. It's that late in the day on a Sunday. You're already thinking about your challenges for Monday morning. Whilst Ruth is trying to remember what she was going to say about mentors and coaches, I'm just going to read out what
Yeah.
Kennedy, sir. Sorry for calling you by your name, but that's the name that you've put on there. Apologies, apologies. It says awesome conversation, powerful detail shared. Thank you, Muzzy, and hats off to you, Ruth. We can only get better as a community if we continue having such empowering and honest conversational platforms. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's really nice of you to say. Awesome. Subanda
Got me
says
back.
react. Ah, it's come back. It's come back.
It's come back. It's come back.
Yes, it's
It
back.
was just on that point about investing. And it's not specific to a coach or to a mentor, but you just think to yourselves, how much money do we spend on, like, going out on a night out or buying that cheeky drink here, all those coffees every day, all those money amount to something, and what do we get back in return? But actually then investing in yourself, and that looks like going on a course, that looks like getting a coach, getting a mentor, it's very different things. But when you invest in yourself, you're increasing your own value,
Yeah.
because that's something that nobody can take away from you. So just wanted to add to that, just when next time you think of investing in something, it's best to invest in yourself. The knowledge that you get from that is just unmatched, and it would definitely help you, like you said, Muzzy, avoid certain pitfalls, to make sure that success is a lot more in grasp than within.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. Love that. Jim Rohn says, I just remembered because you were talking about how much money we spend on a night out and all these things that we do. And you fired shots when you're talking about the hours we spend on Netflix. There's something that he said, which was along the lines of, we are all headed somewhere. The question is where. And in
Yeah.
that journey, it's what are you actually doing on a day-to-day basis? What are the things that you're doing every single day, and where are they taking you? That's the question that you put it as, and coupled with the concept of formal education will make you a living, self-education will make you a fortune.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to investing in your own education type thing. So brilliant, brilliant. So Spanda says reacted to awesome conversation with fantastic. Thank you very much. It seems wrong to call you Spanda as well, because I know that's a surname and I'm not sure what your name is, or even if it's Mr. or Mrs. Apologies. Nancy says, thank you both. Very insightful information. I really agree, Ruth. You've been amazing today. Winnie says, Les Brown, fabulous. Thank you. And that's the details, Ruth's details. If you want to connect with Ruth, that's the information that's there in the chat. And also for anyone who is in the Zim Property Investors WhatsApp group, I'll be sharing that information there as well. So you can connect with Ruth in whatever way you feel you want to find out about her. She's also got a website with more information about what she's talking about. So feel free, please connect with Ruth. She is someone that you definitely want to get to know. Right, Namatai says, thank you, Ruth, you've actually shared that. Oh, fantastic. fantastic. There's an event that you're talking about on the 11th of February. Yes, I want to go to that event. And for anyone who's got the time on that day, please come to that event so we can get to see each other in person. Definitely going to be on that. Awesome. Right. We've come to that time. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to talk to you all night, we've come to that time where I have to come to a close. So I want to start off by thanking you, Ruth. Thank you so much for taking your time to come and speak to us. And thank you for sharing so much insightful knowledge, your journey, your experience. That's going to definitely help people that are out there. And this is the first time we've had a conversation which is not just typically property, where it's not a property strategy, property location, what you want to be focusing on. This is more on the business mindset, and it's been really, really good. Really appreciate your time and your knowledge. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Muzi, for having me. Thank you to everyone who's participated as well.
Awesome. Fabulous. Okay, so thanks guys. Thanks for the guys that have actually joined on the Zoom, and also thank you for the guys that are watching this on YouTube as well. For anyone who might want to find out a bit more about us, we're the Zim Property Investors. We're there on Facebook. We're there on WhatsApp as well. So if you find us on Facebook, the links are there at the bottom in the comments, and also we'll share the information in the chat here as well. For anyone who wants to reach out and join our family, please feel free to come and join. Thanks again, and I would love to ask you all to just unmute and wish each other a fabulous week, a fabulous month, a fabulous year, and then we'll just end the call.